Okay Reddit, what are some clever questions asked by cops to get you in trouble? I was once pulled over for not wearing a seat belt even though I clearly was. He then asked, "Are you calling me a liar?" Cool. I say yes and I don't know what kind of trouble I am in. I say no and I get a ticket even though I am wearing a seat belt. I just replied with, "I am wearing a seat belt." And of course he wasn't happy about that either. I just don't like his initial question to which there is no correct answer. Well, I ain't calling you a truther. Do you know why I pulled you over? Would you like to incriminate yourself? This is probably the most widely used tactic. Police do have microphones on them, and intentionally ask this question for the very reason of self-incrimination. Also, there is a chance that you might mention something that they didn't pull you over for. Just say no. No, eh? So you are unaware and reckless. Not really a question, but they'll casually mention going to get fingerprints or something in hopes that you'll say okay, fine. It was me. I know a guy who fooled everyone. He wrecked his car and then tried to claim his car was stolen and the thief crashed it. He made it believable. I believed him. All our friends believed him. The cop had doubts and mentioned that he'd dust the inside of his car for prints. The guy buckled and admitted. I later asked why. Because he was going to get my fingerprints. I replied, well, no. It's your car. Of course your fingerprints are there. How much did he hate himself after you told him? The most common technique is just to ask the same questions over and over and record the answers. Typically you don't respond the same way every time and eventually, if you're trying to hide something, cracks will appear in your story. Better just to shut up. There is one safe word, lawyer. That's going to be a little awkward when you've just been pulled over and are not under arrest. I think this is a common tactic with insurance claims people too. I had a minor accident at work a while back and my employer's insurance called me daily for a week with the same set of questions. Like you said, if you describe the same event multiple times, you're bound to use some variation. I heard, you previously stated, so many times. No joke, had someone cut me off mid-sentence to say onions and peppers? You previously stated you were carrying vegetables. Which is it? I was often pressed to elaborate on things that really didn't call for it to. I was asked if there was anyone in the next room, which is not visible from where I was. I answered something to the effect of, I don't think so, but I'm not certain, because that's the truth, and was pressed over and over again to explain what I did or did not know. If I would have heard someone else, if anyone could theoretically have been in that room, would someone have had to walk through the room I was in to get to that room, could they have walked past when I wasn't looking, etc. There was nothing to this. I slipped on a wet floor in a kitchen. Whether or not someone was in the bar was completely irrelevant. One call they pressed for as much detail as possible about the walk-in that I was coming from, insisting that I answer highly specific questions about the contents, the state of shelves, just completely irrelevant details. I found out later they had requested a picture of the walk-in, presumably to point to some small detail that I was wrong about when trying to recall it a week later. The whole thing was pretty intense and terrible. The interrogation part of these interviews usually happened before they had me walk through the actual incident, too. By the end of every call I took from them I was rattled and anxious. I think that's the goal. I eventually hired a lawyer to start being present for these calls, and within 3 days the claim was approved and processed. TLDR, keep your cool when you are being questioned like this, even when you're innocent. If you can't, get you a lawyer who will be calm and collected for you. Police officer got me pretty good. Pulled me over at a speed trap. And after a series of questions asked if I thought I could have been speeding and I said yeah probably. And he wrote on the ticket. Admitted to speeding. I was pulled over and was speeding and I admitted to it. He gave me a warning and not a ticket because I was truthful. Same. 45 and a 30 at night. Probably helped that I was driving my mom's Prius with RN plates. And that I turned on the interior lights and rolled down the windows before they even came up to me. Do you know what the speed limit here is? No officer, I was driving much too fast to read those tiny signs. I got pulled over for speeding while driving across Canada and was asked this question. My reply was that I hadn't seen a speed limit sign for at least an hour. He came back with, "Yeah, they blow down," and let me off. Glad he didn't think to ask whether one of the 2 GPS units I had up could have provided the info. You're not from around here, are you? Have heard of some rural cops using this on people, making up some BS local ordinance they violated and then downplaying that into a different offense they didn't commit. Had one time where I was pulled over for making a legal right on red and had the officer pull me over and tell me he was going to mark it as a noise ordinance violation. He even explained it would save points on my license as it was a non-moving violation and I can just go pay that at the courthouse. Prosecuting attorney dismissed the charges when I showed up to contest them and explained what had happened. Yep. They do this especially if you're from out of state. They bank on the fact you're just not going to show up to contest it. Little do they know I'm a spiteful and I will absolutely take 2 days off and drive 8 hours to contest a ticket. Here's one I see from smarter cops. Sniff sniff, I smell beer. Wait for a response. It's not a question, but it definitely puts the ball in your court to explain why this officer smells beer. While it's tempting to suggest that maybe the officer just burped, the correct response is to ask whether you are free to go. If not, it's time to say, "My lawyer told me never to answer any questions or consent to any searches." Maybe you should quit drinking on the job, officer. That's strange, I only smell bacon. But seriously, this is a mistake I see people make with cops and authority figures a lot. Don't answer something you weren't asked. "I smell alcohol" is a statement that does not require a response. But 99% of people, because they are frightened, will get verbal diarrhea the nanosecond there is an uncomfortable silence between them and a cop. The trick is to enjoy that silence. Revel in it. Know that it means the cop doesn't have on you, because if he did, he'd be doing something about it other than playing word games. For starters, no cop should be asking anyone to do this, and if they are way outside the scope of their duties. There are only 3 acceptable tests an officer can force a driver to submit to during a sobriety check. Those 3 tests are the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, HGN, the walk-in turn test, WAT, and the one-leg stand test, OLS. You can find the instructions for each test along with what the officer is looking for during the test here. Warning PDF. Source was a cop. Here's a defense lawyer agreeing with a former cop. Other inadmissible tests include a finger exercise, saying the alphabet without singing, and vertical gaze nystagmus. The correct response to any invitation to perform these or any tests is, "My lawyer told me never to do any surprise police physical coordination exercises." Don't call them field sobriety tests, they are surprise police physical coordination exercises. Nothing is more fun than having a prosecutor demand that you call it what they call it. Any leading question ever? I saw some footage of an officer pull over a group of lads simply for being a group of lads, and he noticed they had a frisbee in the car and asked, "Oh cool, you guys into ultimate frisbee? Why is it so many ultimate frisbee players smoke?" The driver said, "You're trying to trick me, so I will not be answering any questions." "I don't know, but you seem to be an expert on the matter. Please, tell me more." I had a cop pull this devious tactic on me at a DUI checkpoint. Note, I don't drink alcohol, at all. So, he's asking the usual questions: where are you coming from? Work, where are you going? Home, how long have you worked there? Etc. etc. And then he suddenly gets all casual and says, "Well, if you are drunk, you sure fooled me." I thought it was an odd thing to say, and I know to be careful what I say to a cop, because of the tricks they use, so just to be safe I didn't say anything. Just looked at him. He looks away for a second, says something else, I don't remember what exactly, and then goes right back and says the exact same line. "Well, if you are drunk you sure fooled me." At that I knew something odd was going on. So I asked him if we were done and could I leave? At that he let me go. Later, after trying to figure out what that was all about, I realized if I had said anything to the affirmative, yes, or even nodded, it would be as if I said, "Yes, I am fooling you. I am drunk." A pretty despicable way to get someone to unknowingly admit guilt to something they may not even be guilty of.